multiplying fractions. We basically multiply fractions by multiplying the numerators and multiplying the denominators. So what that means is if we have the fraction 1 over 2 multiplied by the fraction 3 over 4, we multiply across the top and we multiply across the bottom. So that would be 1 multiplied by 3 over 2 multiplied by 4. The steps involved, if we had any mixed numbers, so if the above example was 2.5, what we would need to have done first of all was to change that to 5 over 2 multiplied by 3/4 so that we have an improper fraction. Then we cancel any pairs of numbers that you can by dividing through top and bottom. And whenever we're talking about pairs, what we mean is any numerator with any denominator. So in the same way that we would have looked at simplifying fractions, if we had 4 over 12, we know that we can divide through by 4 to give 1/3. So we've divided the top and the bottom. So we cancel any pairs of numbers provided it's a top number and a bottom number. So in the above example where we had halves and quarters, we couldn't cancel sideways. We could only cancel a top and a bottom. And once we've done that, we multiply across by the top and multiply across by the bottom. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples then. So 1/2 multiplied by 5 over 7. So we try and see if we can cancel any top and any bottom. So the top numbers are 1 and 5, and the bottom numbers are 2 and 7. So we can't divide through, there's anything common between 5 and 2 or 5 and 7. So we can't do that. So what we do is we multiply across the top and across the bottom. So we'll have 1 multiplied by 5 on the top, and on the bottom we'll have 2 multiplied by 7. 1 multiplied by 5 is 5, 2 multiplied by 7 is 14. So the answer is 5/14. Example 2 would be a fifth multiplied by 10 over 11. Now what we can see this time is that the numerators, so 1 and 10, and the denominators 5 and 11, they actually have a common factor. So both 10 and 5 appear on the multiples of 5. So that means that 5 will divide both 5 and 10. So if we divide through by 5, 5 turns into a 1 and the 10 turns into a 2. Then there's no other common factors, so we multiply across in the top and multiply across in the bottom. So we do 1 multiplied by 2 over 1 multiplied by 11. 1 multiplied by 2 is 2. 1 times 11 is 11, so the answer is 2/11. Example 3 is 18 over 21 multiplied by 14 over 22. So again, what we can see if we look at the numbers, we've got an 18 and a 14 on the top and 21 and 22 on the bottom. And if we look at the 21 and the 14, we know that they're both multiples of 7. So that means they're both divisible by 7. So if we divide top and bottom by 7, 14 divided by 7 is 2, 21 divided by 7 is 3. Then we can look and see, well, actually, the 18 and the 22, they're both even numbers. So that means they're both divisible by 2. So we can do that. So 18 divided by 2 is 9, and 22 divided by 2 is 11. And we're not quite done there. We've got this third step because both 9 and 3 are multiples of 3. So that means we can divide through by 3. So if we divide 9 and 3 by 3, we get 3 and 1. So what we're left with then is 3 multiplied by 2 on the numerator and 1 multiplied by 11 on the denominator. So 3 times 2 is 6, 1 times 11 is 11, so the answer is 6/11. Then example 4 is 2/3 squared. Now anything squared means you multiply it by itself, so that's 2/3 multiplied by 2/3. So we look and see, is there anywhere on the top that we can cancel with anywhere on the bottom? Now, it might look that we can cancel sideways, so 2 and 2, we can cancel those by dividing through by 2, and 3 and 3 to cancel together to give 1. But that doesn't work because we have to cancel tops with bottoms. We can't cancel a top with another top or a bottom with another bottom. So we only cancel between numerators and denominators. So 2 and 3 don't share a common factor, so there's nothing we can do there. So what we do is just multiply the tops together. So 2 multiplied by 2. Multiply the bottoms together. 3 multiplied by 3. And that works out to be 4 over 9. Now, had we thought about trying to cancel across the way, so let's pretend that we were doing that. We get 2 over 3 multiplied by 2 over 3. The 2's cancel to leave 1 and 1. The 3's cancel to give 1 and 1. And what we'd be left with is 1 multiplied by 1 over 1 multiplied by 1, which is 1 over 1, which simplifies to 1. But the only thing that multiplies by itself to get 1 is 1. 1 multiplied by 1 is 1. So if 1 multiplied by 1 is 1, 2/3 multiplied by 2/3 can't equal 1 because 2/3 isn't 1. So that implies that this method is wrong. And the reason for it to be wrong is that we can't cancel sideways. We can only cancel a top and a bottom. Example 5 is 9 over 20 multiplied by 2 over 5 multiplied by 25 over 27. So again, what we need to try and do is look for common factors between the top and the bottom. So we can see a 5 and a 25. And 5 and 25 are both divisible by 5. So if we divide through by 5, we get 5 and 1. Then we can also see, well, there's a 27 and a 9. And 27 and 9 are both divisible by 9. So we can divide through by 9 to get 1 and 3. Well, there's also a 2 and a 20. So we can cancel the 2 and the 20. They're both even numbers, so we can divide by 2. And that will leave 1 and 10. Now what we've got on the bottom is a 10 and the top is a 5. And again, these two numbers are divisible by 5, so we can go again. So 10 and 5 will cancel to give 2 and 1. So now what we've got is 1 times 1 times 1 on the top. And on the bottom is 2 times 1 times 3, which leaves 1 over 6. Now, had we not seen all of those opportunities for cancelling, what we would have had was 9 over 20 multiplied by 2 over 5 multiplied by 25 over 27. And what we would have had to do was just multiply across. So do 9 times 2 times 25 over 20 times 5 times 27. Now I've got a calculator, so I'm going to work those out rather than using non-calculator methods. So 9 times 2 times 25 is 450. 20 times 5 times 27 is 2,700. And we would have had to try and go and simplify that down. So you could do that by cancelling through 0 and 0, so dividing by 10. Then we can see that 45 and the 270, they could cancel out by dividing through by 9, and that would get 5 and 30. And then the 5 and the 30 cancel to give 1 and 6, which is what we had. But rather than doing all that long multiplication that we'd have to do, spotting what we can cancel out makes life so much easier at the start. So if we can multiply smaller numbers, we can do that in our head, whereas if we get big numbers, we're going to have to use a calculator or use long multiplication. Next example we're going to look at is 1.5 multiplied by 3/4. And what we need to do for that, first of all, we can see that we've got a mixed number. And the first thing that we need to do with a mixed number is change it into a top-heavy fraction. So there's 2 halves in a whole, So in 1.5, there's going to be 3 halves. In 3/4, we just get 3/4. Now we can only cancel with the numerator and the denominator. So again, although there looks like there's a 3 and a 3 beside each other, we can't cancel sideways. And again, with the 2 and the 4, we can't cancel sideways. We've got to cancel a numerator with a denominator. And 2 and 4 don't share any factors with 3. So we can't do that, so we have to multiply across. So we're going to have 3 times 3 at the top, 2 times 4 at the bottom. That's 9/8. 9/8 is an improper fraction. We should always leave our answers as mixed numbers. 8 goes into 9 once with 1 left over, so it's going to be 1 1/8. Next example is 3 1/3 multiplied by 4 4/5. So we've got mixed numbers here, we need to change those into top-heavy fractions. So 1 whole is 3/3, so 3 wholes will be 9/3. So 3 1/3 is going to be 10/3. 4 4/5, there are 5/5 in a whole. So there's going to be 20/5 in 4, which means there's going to be 24/5 in 4 4/5. So we look to try and cancel. Again, we can't cancel sideways, so we can't divide the 10 and the 24 by 2. We can only cancel a top with a bottom. So if we look, we can see we've got a 10 and a 5. They're both divisible by 5. And that will leave 2 and 1. We can cancel the 3 and 24. Divide through by 3. And we get 1 and 8. So now we multiply across the top and across the bottom. And we've got 2 multiplied by 8 on the top, 1 multiplied by 1 on the bottom. 2 times 8 is 16, 1 times 1 is 1. 16/1 is just 16. And then the last example of 4 multiplied by 2 and 1/10. We need to change these into top-heavy fractions. And the 4 we're going to write as 4/1. 2 1/10 is going to be 21/10. And we look to see where we can cancel. The 4 and the 10 are both even numbers, so we can divide through by 2 to get 2 and 5. Then we can multiply across the top. So we get 2 multiplied by 21, multiply across the bottom, 1 multiplied by 5. That's 42/5. 5 goes into 42 8 times with 2 left over. So the answer is 8 2/5.